What would you do if the father who abandoned you for years suddenly knocked on your door, penniless, begging for help after giving everything to the son he chose over you? That's the question I've been wrestling with since last night, when Dad showed up at my apartment, his face gaunt, his clothes threadbare, and his voice trembling with a desperation I'd never heard before. I stood there, frozen in the doorway, staring at the man who'd once been my hero but became a stranger. My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how my father's choices tore us apart and how I'm trying to decide if I can piece us back together. I was 10 when Dad left. Mom had just passed away, and I was still waking up each morning expecting to hear her humming in the kitchen. Instead, I got silence and then Dad's absence. He didn't just leave me. He left for a new life with his mistress, Karen, and her son, Lucas, my half-brother. Lucas was 8, a wide-eyed kid who didn't know I existed until years later. Dad poured everything into them: his time, his money, his love. I got postcards on birthdays, if I was lucky, and a few awkward phone calls where he'd promised to visit but never did. Meanwhile, Lucas got the father I'd lost. Private school, soccer camps, vacations to places I'd only seen in magazines. Dad gave it all to him. I stayed with Grandma, who raised me on her teacher's pension, teaching me to stretch every dollar and to bury my hurt deep. By the time I was 18, I'd built a wall around my heart. I worked odd jobs, put myself through community college, and landed a decent gig as a graphic designer. I didn't need Dad. I told myself I didn't want him either. But the anger simmered, especially when I heard through the grapevine that Lucas was thriving, college paid for, a car for his 16th birthday, a trust fund to boot. Dad had chosen his new family, and I was just collateral damage. I stopped answering his calls, deleted his emails, and moved on. Or so I thought. Last night, everything changed. I was working late, sketching a logo for a client, when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Dad, looking like he'd aged 20 years instead of 10. His hair was gray, his jacket patched, and his eyes carried a weight I couldn't ignore. "Ethan," he said, voice cracking, "I need your help." I didn't invite him in. I just stood there, arms crossed, as he spilled his story. Karen had left him. Lucas, now 22, had burned through Dad's savings partying, gambling, chasing dreams that never panned out. Dad had sold his house to cover Lucas's debts, emptied his retirement fund, and now had nothing. He was living in a motel, barely scraping by, and had nowhere else to turn. "You're my son," he said, as if that word still meant something between us. I wanted to slam the door. I wanted to scream at him for choosing Lucas, for leaving me to fend for myself while he played devoted dad to someone else's kid. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way his hands shook or the way he couldn't meet my eyes. I told him I'd think about it and send him away. As the door clicked shut, I sank to the floor, my head spinning. Why should I help him? He'd given me nothing. But the more I thought, the more I wondered, was I punishing him for his mistakes, or was I punishing myself for still caring? The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Grandma. She's 70 now, sharp as ever, and the only person who knows me better than I know myself. I told her everything, expecting her to tell me to cut Dad off for good. Instead, she sighed and said, "Ethan, there's something you need to know." That's when she dropped the twist I never saw coming. Lucas wasn't just Karen's son, who was Dad's, too. Born before Dad even met Mom, but hidden from us all. Dad hadn't just chosen a new family. He'd been trying to make up for abandoning Lucas first. Grandma had known all along, but kept it quiet, hoping I'd never have to carry that truth. "Your father's a flawed man," she said, "but he's been running from his guilt his whole life. Maybe it's time someone stopped running." Her words hit me like a freight train. Lucas wasn't the villain I'd made him out to be, was as much a victim of Dad's choices as I was. I spent the day replaying memories, trying to see Dad's actions through this new lens. I remembered the postcards, the calls, the way he'd always sounded like he was holding something back. Was he torn between two sons, trying to fix one mistake while creating another? I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't decide Dad's fate without facing Lucas. I tracked him down through an old mutual friend. Lucas was living in a rundown apartment across town, working odd jobs like I had at his age. When I knocked, he opened the door, and I saw myself in his same dark eyes, same guarded posture. He didn't know who I was at first, but when I said my name, his face fell. Ethan, he whispered, like he'd been expecting this moment. We sat on his sagging couch, and he told me his side. Dad had smothered him with attention, but it came with strings expectations Lucas could never meet. The money, the gifts, the trust fund, it was all Dad's way of buying forgiveness, not love. Lucas had spiraled, ashamed of his failures, and now barely spoke to Dad. I didn't know about you, he said, voice breaking. If I had, maybe I wouldn't have taken so much. That conversation shifted something in me. Lucas wasn't the spoiled kid I'd imagined he was, just another son caught in Dad's mess. I told him about Dad's situation, and to my surprise, Lucas didn't shrug it off. He's still our dad, he said, even if he screwed up. We talked for hours, piecing together the fractured story of our family. Neither of us had the whole picture, but together we started to understand. I went back to Dad the next day. He was at the motel, sitting on a plastic chair outside his room, staring at nothing. I didn't forgive him not yet, but I told him he could stay with me for a while. Not because he deserved it, but because I didn't want to be the kind of man who turns away someone in need, even if they'd hurt me. I gave him a condition. He had to meet with Lucas, too. No more running. No more choosing one son over the other. He nodded, tears in his eyes, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of the father I used to know. It's been a month now. Dad's on my couch, looking for work. Lucas comes over sometimes, and we're slowly learning to be brothers. It's awkward, messy, and far from perfect. I still wrestle with resentment, and I know Dad's got a long road to make things right. But I'm starting to see that family isn't about who deserves what, it's about choosing to show up, even when it hurts. Maybe Dad gave all his time and money to Lucas because he thought he could fix the past. Maybe I'm helping him now because I want to believe in a future where we're not defined by his mistakes. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just love, flawed and stubborn, refusing to let go.